The evening sky had turned a deep purple as Maya Williams finished her 12-hour shift at Riverdale General Hospital. Her shoulders ached from hunching over patient charts all night. Working as a hospital administrator meant long hours, especially during flu season when the emergency room filled to capacity. All she wanted now was to get home, kick off her sensible work shoes, and sink into her couch with a cup of tea. Maya checked her watch. 11:47 p.m. The roads would be empty this late. Maybe she'd make it home in 20 minutes instead of the usual 35. She waved goodbye to the night security guard, a friendly older man who always saved the last chocolate donut for her on Thursday nights. "Drive safe, Maya," he called after her. "Roads are a bit slick from the rain earlier." "Will do, Mr. Henderson. See you tomorrow night." The hospital parking garage was nearly empty. Maya pulled her navy blue cardigan tighter around her body as she walked to her car, a modest silver sedan she'd bought 3 years ago after her promotion. The car wasn't fancy, but it was reliable, and Maya took pride in keeping it clean and well-maintained. She slid into the driver's seat, placed her purse on the passenger side, and started the engine. The radio automatically turned on, playing a soft jazz station she'd been enjoying lately. The gentle saxophone seemed to melt away some of the tension in her neck as she drove down the exit ramp and onto the main road. The streets were indeed quiet. Street lights cast golden pools on the wet pavement, and Maya drove carefully, mindful of Mr. Henderson's warning about slick roads. She took her usual route home, past the closed storefronts and darkened office buildings. At a red light, she checked her phone briefly to see a text from her sister, asking if she'd made it through her shift okay. Maya smiled, deciding to call her once she got home. About 10 minutes into her drive, Maya noticed headlights behind her coming up quickly. She checked her speedometer. She was going exactly at the speed limit of 35 mph. The car behind her slowed down as it approached, then followed at a distance for about half a mile. Maya felt a small knot form in her stomach. Something about the way the car was following made her uneasy. Then the red and blue lights flashed on, and the knot in her stomach tightened. "What on earth?" Maya muttered to herself. She was certain she hadn't been speeding. Her insurance and registration were up to date. She'd just had the car inspected last month. Maya signaled and pulled over to the right, into the parking lot of a closed convenience store. The police car stopped behind her. She took a deep breath, remembering what her father had taught her years ago about being pulled over. Keep your hands visible. Be polite but firm. Document everything. She turned off the music, rolled down her window, and placed both hands on the steering wheel where they could be clearly seen. In her rearview mirror, she watched as an officer stepped out of the patrol car. He was tall, white, with broad shoulders and a military-style haircut. The name tag on his uniform read, Brennan. Officer Brennan approached slowly, one hand resting near his holster in what Maya recognized as standard procedure. As he reached her window, he shined his flashlight first into the back seat of her car, then directly into her face. Maya squinted against the harsh light but kept her hands firmly on the wheel. "License and registration," Officer Brennan said, his voice flat. "Good evening, officer," Maya replied, keeping her tone professional and calm. "May I ask why I'm being pulled over?" "Your taillight is out," he said. "License and registration, please." Maya was confused. She just had the car checked. There was no way a taillight was out. But she nodded. "Officer, I'm going to reach for my purse on the passenger seat to get my license, and then I'll get the registration from the glove compartment. Is that okay?" The officer's expression didn't change. "Just get your documents, ma'am." Maya slowly reached for her purse, pulled out her wallet, and handed her license to the officer. Then she carefully opened the glove compartment and retrieved her registration. As she handed it over, she noticed Officer Brennan studying her hospital ID card, which was clipped to her cardigan. "You work at the hospital?" he asked, his tone unchanged. "Yes, sir. I just finished my shift. I'm an administrator in the emergency department." Officer Brennan didn't respond to this. He looked at her license, then back at her face as if confirming her identity. "Wait here," he said, and walked back to his patrol car. Maya's heart was beating faster than normal. Something didn't feel right about this stop. Her taillight couldn't be out. She would have noticed it in the hospital parking garage. She took out her phone and opened the voice recording app, pressing record and placing the phone in the cup holder. Just in case. Through her mirrors, Maya could see Officer Brennan sitting in his patrol car, presumably running her information. She took the opportunity to text her sister. Got pulled over on way home. Officer says taillight out. Strange because just had car checked. Will call when I get home. After what seemed like an unusually long time, Officer Brennan returned to her window. He hadn't given back her license or registration. Step out of the vehicle, please, he said. Maya's uneasiness grew stronger. May I ask why, officer? Is there a problem with my license or registration? Officer Brennan's expression hardened. Ma'am, I'm not going to ask again. Step out of the vehicle. I don't understand why I need to exit my car for a taillight violation, Maya said, trying to keep her voice steady. I'd feel more comfortable if you could explain. Are you refusing to comply with a lawful order? Officer Brennan cut her off, his voice taking on an edge that wasn't there before. No, sir, I'm not refusing, Maya said quickly. I'm just trying to understand the situation. The officer stepped back slightly. Exit the vehicle now, or I'll have to consider this resisting. Maya felt a chill run through her body. This was escalating too quickly and she couldn't understand why. She was being polite and reasonable. She'd done nothing wrong, yet somehow she was being treated like a threat. I'm going to exit the vehicle now, she said clearly, wanting to document her compliance on the voice recording. She slowly opened her door and stepped out, keeping her movements deliberate and non-threatening. Once she was standing on the pavement, Officer Brennan said, Turn around and face your vehicle, hands on the hood. Officer, please, Maya said, her voice betraying a slight tremor now. I was just driving home from work. I don't understand what's happening. Ma'am, you're being uncooperative and I'm detecting signs of possible intoxication. This was absurd. Maya hadn't had a drop of alcohol. Officer Brennan, I am completely sober. I just finished a 12-hour shift at the hospital. You can call my supervisor to confirm. Instead of responding, Officer Brennan reached for his radio. Dispatch, this is Unit 437. I'm going to need backup at the corner of Maple and 22nd. Got a possibly intoxicated driver being difficult. Maya felt a surge of both fear and indignation. I'm not being difficult and I'm certainly not intoxicated. This is completely unnecessary. Put your hands on the hood of the car now, Officer Brennan ordered, his tone leaving no room for discussion. Maya complied, placing her palms flat on the cool metal of her car hood. As she did so, she remembered, her phone was still recording in the cup holder. She wished she had taken it with her. I'm going to reach into my pocket and get my phone to record this interaction, she said carefully. You will do no such thing, Officer Brennan replied sharply. Keep your hands where I can see them. Maya stood there, hands on her car hood. As passing cars occasionally slowed to look at the scene, a black woman in professional clothes being detained by a police officer in a convenience store parking lot. Officer, Maya tried again, keeping her voice level. I work at Riverdale General. I have colleagues who can vouch for me. I was just heading home after my shift. Please, can you tell me what I've done wrong besides allegedly having a tail light? Out? Officer Brennan didn't answer her question. Instead, he asked, Have you been drinking tonight, ma'am? No, I have not. I don't drink alcohol at all, actually. Any medications or drugs in your system that might impair your driving? Absolutely not. I'm a healthcare professional. I wouldn't drive if I were impaired in any way. In the distance, Maya could hear the wail of another siren approaching. Backup was coming, just as Officer Brennan had requested. She felt her chest tighten with anxiety. How had a simple drive home turned into this? Through the corner of her eye, Maya noticed movement across the street. Someone had stopped their car and appeared to be watching the situation unfold. The person was holding up what looked like a phone, possibly recording. Maya felt a small measure of relief knowing that there was a witness. As the second patrol car pulled into the parking lot, its lights casting alternating red and blue shadows across the scene, Maya took a deep breath. She knew she had done nothing wrong. She knew her rights. But she also knew that in this moment she needed to stay calm and think clearly. The night that had started with a quiet drive home from work had turned into something else entirely. something that made Maya's heart race and her palms sweat against the hood of her own car. As the second officer stepped out of the newly arrived patrol car, Maya steeled herself for whatever was coming next. This wasn't just about a taillight anymore. It hadn't been from the start. The second officer approached with a measured stride. Unlike Officer Brennan, this officer was shorter, with a slight build and graying hair at the temples. The name on his uniform read, Wilson. Maya watched him carefully as he exchanged a few quiet words with Officer Brennan, just out of her earshot. "What seems to be the problem here?" Officer Wilson asked, addressing both his colleague and Maya. Before Maya could speak, Officer Brennan answered, "Possible DUI. Subject was driving erratically and has been uncooperative since I pulled her over." Maya's mouth fell open in shock. "That is absolutely not true," she said firmly. "I was driving exactly at the speed limit. Officer Brennan said he pulled me over for a taillight, not erratic driving. And I haven't been uncooperative. I've answered all his questions respectfully." Officer Wilson looked between Maya and his colleague, his expression unreadable. "Ma'am, do you consent to a field sobriety test?" "I'm completely sober," Maya insisted. "I just finished a 12-hour shift at Riverdale General Hospital. I'm an administrator there." She gestured toward her ID badge still clipped to her cardigan. "You can call the hospital to verify. But yes, I'll take any test you want because I have nothing to hide." Officer Wilson nodded and began to explain the procedure for a standard field sobriety test. As he spoke, a third police car pulled into the parking lot, its lights also flashing. Maya felt her heart sink. 3 police cars for a supposedly broken taillight? This was becoming increasingly excessive. The third officer who stepped out was a woman named Officer Reynolds, according to her name tag. She approached the scene with a hand resting casually on her belt. "Everything under control here?" she asked her colleagues. "Just about to conduct a field sobriety test," Officer Wilson replied. "I still don't understand why this is necessary," Maya said, trying to keep the frustration out of her voice. "And I'd like to get my phone from my car to record this interaction." "That won't be necessary," Officer Brennan cut in sharply. "Officer?" Reynolds glanced at Maya, then at her car. "Why don't I check that taillight while you handle the sobriety test?" As Officer Wilson began guiding Maya through the field sobriety test, following his finger with her eyes, walking in a straight line standing on one foot, Officer Reynolds walked around to the back of Maya's car. "Both taillights are working just fine," Officer Reynolds called out after a moment. Maya felt a surge of vindication but kept her focus on completing the sobriety test. She knew she would pass with flying colors. She touched her nose with alternating. Index fingers counted backward from 100 and performed all the other tasks Officer Wilson requested. When the test was complete, Officer Wilson nodded. "She's not showing any signs of intoxication." Maya looked directly at Officer Brennan. "As I told you, I'm completely sober. Now can I please have my license and registration back so I can go home? I've been on my feet for 12 hours and I'm exhausted." Instead of returning her documents, Officer Brennan turned to his colleagues. "I still want to search the vehicle. Something doesn't feel right about this situation." "What grounds do you have to search my car?" Maya asked, her patience wearing thin. "I was supposedly pulled over for a taillight that isn't even out. I've passed a sobriety test. What possible reason could you have to search my vehicle?" Officer Brennan stepped closer to her, his posture intimidating. "Are you hiding something, Ms. Williams? Because your defensiveness suggests you might be." "I'm not being defensive. I'm asserting my rights," Maya replied, standing her ground despite her racing heart. "I do not consent to a search of my vehicle without a warrant or probable cause." By now, a small crowd had gathered across the street. 3 or 4 people stood watching, most of them holding up phones, presumably recording the scene. Maya was grateful for their presence. Witnesses meant accountability. "Officer Brennan," Officer Reynolds said in a low voice, "maybe we should—" "I smell marijuana coming from the vehicle," Officer Brennan announced suddenly, cutting off his colleague. Maya stared at him in disbelief. "That's impossible. I don't use marijuana. I don't even allow smoking of any kind in my car. That's probable cause for a search." Officer Brennan said, ignoring her protest. He turned to Officer Wilson. Keep an eye on her while I check the vehicle. Maya felt tears of frustration burning behind her eyes, but she refused to let them fall. This was wrong on so many levels. She knew there was nothing illegal in her car, no drugs, no weapons, nothing that could justify this treatment. But she also knew that protesting further might only make the situation worse. I want it on record that I do not consent to this search, she said clearly, loud enough for the bystanders across the street to hear. And I want to know why I'm being treated this way when I've done absolutely nothing wrong. Officer Wilson at least had the decency to look uncomfortable. Officer Reynolds kept glancing at the growing crowd of witnesses. Officer Brennan began searching Maya's car thoroughly, opening the glove compartment, checking under seats, rummaging through her work bag. Maya watched in silent outrage as he handled her belongings without care or respect. After several minutes of searching, Officer Brennan emerged from the car empty-handed, as Maya knew he would. There was nothing to find, nothing in the vehicle, he admitted reluctantly to his colleagues. Then can I please have my documents back and go home now? Maya asked, struggling to keep her voice steady. Officer Brennan seemed to consider this for a moment, then shook his head. I still have concerns about your behavior tonight. I think we should continue this conversation at the station. What? Maya couldn't believe what she was hearing. On what grounds? You found nothing illegal. I've passed the sobriety test. My taillight isn't even out. What possible reason could you have to take me to the station? Obstruction, Officer Brennan said. You've been interfering with my investigation from the start. That's not true, Maya protested, her voice rising with indignation. I've answered all your questions. I've complied with all your instructions. How have I obstructed anything? Officer. Reynolds stepped forward. Brennan, I'm not sure this is... She questioned my authority, Officer Brennan insisted. She refused to exit the vehicle promptly when ordered. Maya looked at the other two officers, hoping for some semblance of reason. I asked why I needed to exit my vehicle for a taillight violation. That's not obstruction, that's a reasonable question. Officer Wilson shifted uncomfortably. Maybe we should just issue a warning and... No, Officer Brennan cut him off. I'm taking her in. Turn around, Ms. Williams. Maya felt a chill run through her body as she realized what was about to happen. Please don't do this, she said, her voice barely above a whisper. Please. But Officer Brennan was already reaching for his handcuffs. Turn around and put your hands behind your back. Across the street, the bystanders were becoming more vocal. Someone shouted, This isn't right. Another called out, We're recording everything. Maya slowly turned around, fighting back tears. This couldn't be happening. She had done nothing wrong. She was a respected professional, a valued member of her community, and now she was being handcuffed in a convenience store parking lot for all to see. As the cold metal clasped around her wrists, Maya caught sight of a young woman across the street. The woman was holding her phone up high, making sure to capture everything. She gave Maya a small nod, a silent promise that this injustice was being documented. You're making a serious mistake, Maya said to Officer Brennan as he guided her toward his patrol car. I've done nothing to deserve this treatment. You can explain that to the booking officer, he replied dismissively. Maya glanced back at her car, thinking of her phone still recording in the cup holder. Would they find it? Would they delete the recording? And what about her sister, who was expecting her call when she got home? Can I at least make a phone call? Maya asked as Officer Brennan opened the back door of his patrol car. My sister is expecting to hear from me. She'll be worried. You can make a call from the station, Officer Brennan said, placing his hand on top of her head to guide her into the back seat, an unnecessary gesture that felt deliberately humiliating. As Maya sat in the back seat of the patrol car, she saw Officer Reynolds approach her colleagues. They spoke in hushed tones, with Officer Reynolds occasionally gesturing toward the crowd of witnesses. Maya couldn't hear what they were saying, but it seemed like some kind of disagreement. Finally, Officer Reynolds walked over to Maya's car, opened the driver's door, and emerged with Maya's purse and phone. She brought them to the patrol car and handed them to Officer Brennan. Her personal effects, Officer Reynolds said, her expression neutral but her eyes conveying something else. Perhaps regret or concern. Officer Brennan took the items without comment and placed them in the front seat beside him. Then he got into the driver's seat and started the engine. As they pulled away from the convenience store parking lot, Maya caught one last glimpse of the bystanders, still recording, still bearing witness. She drew strength from their presence. Whatever happened next, at least there would be a record of this injustice. The patrol car turned onto the main road, heading toward the police station. Maya sat in silence, her wrists uncomfortable in the tight handcuffs, her mind racing with thoughts of what might happen next. She thought of her rights, of the phone calls she would make, of the complaint she would file. This wasn't over, not by a long shot. Maya Williams was not someone who would let an abuse of power go unchallenged. As the lights of the city passed by outside the window, she made a silent promise to herself. She would fight this, not just for herself, but for anyone else who might face the same unjust treatment in the future. The night was far from over. The ride to the police station was silent and tense. Maya sat in the back of the patrol car, the handcuffs digging into her wrists every time they hit a bump in the road. She watched the familiar streets of her city pass by through the window, places that had always felt safe now taking on a darker, more threatening quality. Officer Brennan hadn't spoken a word since they left the convenience store parking lot. He drove with one hand on the wheel, occasionally glancing at Maya in the rearview mirror. His expression remained cold and unreadable. Maya tried to steady her breathing. Panic wouldn't help her now. She needed to stay calm, to think clearly. She'd seen enough episodes of crime shows to know her rights. She was entitled to a phone call, entitled to an attorney. She would use those rights as soon as they arrived at the station. After about 15 minutes, they pulled into the parking lot of the police station, a squat brick building with harsh fluorescent lighting spilling from its windows. Officer Brennan got out of the car, retrieved Maya's personal belongings from the front seat, then opened the back door. "Let's go," he said, his first words since they'd left the scene of her arrest. Maya stepped out awkwardly, her balance compromised by the handcuffs. Officer Brennan took her by the arm and led her toward the entrance. His grip wasn't painful, but it was firm enough to remind her that she wasn't free to move on her own. Inside, the station was brightly lit and surprisingly quiet. A few officers milled about, some at desks typing reports, others chatting in low voices near a coffee machine. Most of them glanced up briefly as Officer Brennan led Maya through the main area, but quickly returned to their tasks, as if the sight of a handcuffed woman in professional clothes was nothing out of the ordinary. They approached a desk where an older officer with salt and pepper hair was working on a computer. His nameplate read Sergeant Thompson. "Got one for processing," Officer Brennan announced. Sergeant Thompson looked up, his eyes taking in Maya's appearance, her hospital ID still clipped to her cardigan, her neat but tired appearance after a long shift. "Charges? Obstruction and resisting," Officer Brennan replied. Maya couldn't stay silent any longer. "That's not true. I didn't obstruct anything and I didn't resist. This officer pulled me over claiming my taillight was out, which it wasn't. He then falsely accused me of driving while intoxicated, which a field sobriety test disproved. I've done nothing wrong." Sergeant Thompson's expression didn't change as he looked from Maya to Officer Brennan. "Any other officers present at the scene?" "Wilson and Reynolds," Officer Brennan said. "Have they filed their reports yet?" "They're still on patrol. Should be back later tonight." Sergeant Thompson nodded, then addressed Maya. "Name?" "Maya Williams." "Occupation?" "I'm an administrator at Riverdale General Hospital. I was on my way home from my shift when I was pulled over." Sergeant Thompson typed this information into his computer. "Empty your pockets, please." "My pockets are empty," Maya replied, "and I'd like to make my phone call now. I need to contact my sister and let her know where I am, and I want to call an attorney." "All in good time, Ms. Williams," Sergeant Thompson said, his tone neither friendly nor hostile. "First, we need to complete the booking process." The next 30 minutes were a blur of procedures. Fingerprinting, a mugshot, forms to sign. Maya's handcuffs were removed for these processes, but replaced afterward. Throughout it all, She repeated her request to make a phone call, only to be told, soon, or after processing. Finally, after what felt like hours but was probably less than one, Maya was led to a small holding cell. It contained nothing but a metal bench attached to the wall and a toilet in the corner with no privacy screen. The cell was clean but cold, both in temperature and appearance. "When can I make my phone call?" Maya asked again as Officer Brennan prepared to close the cell door. "When the booking process is complete," he replied. "The booking process is complete," Maya insisted. "I've been fingerprinted and photographed. I've signed your forms. I'm legally entitled to a phone call." Officer Brennan's expression hardened. "You'll get your call when I say you get your call. Maybe you should think about your attitude while you wait." With that, he closed the cell door, the lock engaging with a loud metallic click that echoed in the small space. Maya sat down on the hard bench, finally allowing herself a moment of vulnerability now that she was alone. Her hands trembled slightly and she took several deep breaths to steady herself. This was wrong on every level. She had done nothing to deserve this treatment. Nothing. She looked at her watch. 1:37 a.m. Her sister would definitely be worried by now. And Maya had a shift tomorrow. No, today, starting at 3 p.m. Would she even be released by then? What would her supervisor think if she didn't show up? What would go on her record? Time passed slowly in the holding cell. Maya tried to distract herself by mentally reviewing hospital protocols, planning her weekly grocery list, anything to keep fear and anger from overwhelming her. She wasn't sure how long she'd been there when the door at the end of the hallway opened and Officer Brennan returned. He unlocked her cell but didn't open the door. "Are you ready to be more cooperative?" Maya stood up, her professional demeanor firmly back in place. "I've been cooperative from the beginning, Officer Brennan. I still don't understand why I'm here and I still want to make my phone call." "The thing is, Ms. Williams," Officer Brennan said, leaning against the doorframe, "your lack of respect for law enforcement is troubling. A simple traffic stop turned into all this because you couldn't just follow directions without questioning every little thing." Maya felt a surge of indignation. "With all due respect, officer, that's not what happened. You pulled me over for a taillight that wasn't actually out. You escalated a routine traffic stop for no reason. And now you're holding me without charges and denying me my right to a phone call." Officer Brennan's expression darkened. "See, that's exactly the attitude I'm talking about. Always thinking you know better than the officer." "I'm not claiming to know better than you about law enforcement," Maya replied carefully. "I'm simply stating facts about my own experience tonight. And the fact is, I've done nothing wrong." Officer Brennan studied her for a long moment, then closed the cell door again without responding. Maya heard his footsteps recede down the hallway, followed by the sound of a door closing. She sat back down on the bench, fighting back tears of frustration. This was beginning to feel less like a misunderstanding and more like deliberate harassment. The realization sent a chill through her body. Maya wasn't sure how much time had passed when the door opened again. This time, it was Officer Reynolds, who appeared in the hallway. She approached Maya's cell with a more neutral expression than Officer Brennan had shown. "Ms. Williams, I've brought you some water," she said, sliding a paper cup through a small opening in the cell door. Maya stood and accepted the cup gratefully. Her throat was dry from stress and talking. "Thank you. Can you tell me what's happening? When can I make my phone call?" Officer Reynolds glanced over her shoulder before responding in a lower voice. "Look, I can't say much, but this situation has been unusual. Officer Brennan is filing his report now. Once that's done, someone will come to take your statement. My statement about what?" Maya asked. "I've done nothing wrong. Just be patient," Officer Reynolds advised. "And for what it's worth, I saw those people filming across the street. Everything that happened at the traffic stop is documented." Before Maya could respond, Officer Reynolds turned and walked away, leaving Maya to wonder if she'd just received a subtle message of support or merely a statement of fact. More time passed. Maya had no way of knowing exactly how long she'd been in the holding cell, but it felt like hours. Her back ached from sitting on the hard bench, and her mind was racing, with a mixture of worry, anger, and increasingly determination. This wasn't just about her anymore. This was about abuse of power, about the way people could be treated when they had no one to witness or intervene. Maya thought about the bystanders with their phones, about Officer Reynolds's comment. There was evidence of what had happened tonight. She wouldn't let this injustice stand. The sound of the hallway door opening again drew Maya's attention. This time it was Officer Brennan again, accompanied by a man in plain clothes whom Maya hadn't seen before. He was middle-aged with a tired expression and a badge clipped to his belt. A detective, perhaps. Ms. Williams, the plainclothes officer, said, "I'm Lieutenant Davis. I understand there's been some confusion tonight." "There's been no confusion," Maya replied firmly. "I was wrongfully detained after a traffic stop for a violation that didn't exist. I've been held here for hours without being allowed to make a phone call. There's nothing confusing about it. It's a clear violation of my rights." Lieutenant Davis exchanged a look with Officer Brennan, whose expression remained stony. "Why don't we discuss this in an interview room, more comfortable than this cell?" Maya stood up. "I'd like to make my phone call first. I have the right to contact an attorney before answering any questions." "Of course," Lieutenant Davis said after a brief hesitation. "We'll arrange that right away." As the cell door opened and Maya stepped out, she caught Officer Brennan's expression, a mixture of annoyance and something else. Something that told her this night was far from over. Lieutenant Davis led Maya to a small interview room with a metal table bolted to the floor and 3 chairs. The walls were bare except for a clock that read 3:22 a.m. Maya had been at the station for nearly 2 hours. "Please have a seat," Lieutenant Davis said, gesturing to one of the chairs. Maya sat down, keeping her back straight despite her exhaustion. Officer Brennan took up a position against the wall rather than sitting, his arms crossed over his chest. The body language spoke volumes. Lieutenant Davis was attempting to appear reasonable while Officer Brennan maintained his intimidating stance. "Before we begin," Maya said firmly, "I'd like to make my phone call. I need to contact my sister, who is undoubtedly worried by now, and I want to speak with an attorney." Lieutenant Davis nodded. "Of course, we'll get to that shortly. First, I'd like to understand what happened tonight from your perspective." "With all due respect," Maya replied, "I know my rights. I'm entitled to a phone call and legal representation before questioning. I've been cooperative throughout this entire ordeal, but I won't answer questions until I've spoken to an attorney." A flicker of annoyance crossed Lieutenant Davis's face, quickly replaced by a neutral expression. "Ms. Williams, we're just having an informal conversation here. You're not being charged with anything at this point." "Then why am I still in handcuffs?" Maya asked, holding up her restrained wrists. "And why have I been detained for 2 hours without being allowed to make a phone call?" Officer Brennan pushed himself away from the wall. "This is exactly the kind of attitude I've been dealing with all night, Lieutenant. Constant questioning of authority, refusal to cooperate." "I haven't refused to cooperate," Maya cut in. "I've answered questions, I've followed instructions. I've been respectful despite being treated unfairly. What I won't do is waive my rights." "Lieutenant," Davis held up a hand to silence Officer Brennan, who looked like he was about to speak again. "Let's all take a breath here." He turned to Maya. "You're right, Ms. Williams. You are entitled to a phone call. I'll arrange that right now." He stood up and left the room, leaving Maya alone with Officer Brennan. The tension in the small space was palpable. Maya kept her eyes fixed on the clock on the wall, refusing to be intimidated by Officer Brennan's looming presence. After a few minutes of uncomfortable silence, Lieutenant Davis returned with a cordless phone. "Here you go, Ms. Williams. You have 5 minutes." Maya's hands were still cuffed, making it awkward to dial, but she managed to punch in her sister's number. After 3 rings, a groggy voice answered. "Hello?" "Leah, it's me," Maya said, relief washing over her at the sound of her sister's voice. "Maya? Where are you? I've been texting you for hours. I was about to call the hospital to see if something happened during your shift." "I'm at the police station," Maya said, keeping her voice steady. "I was pulled over on my way home from work and wrongfully detained. I need you to call Roger." Roger was their cousin who worked as an attorney. He specialized in real estate law, not criminal defense, but he would know what to do, who to call. The police station? What? Why, I don't have much time, Maya interrupted gently. Please, just call Roger. Tell him I've been detained without cause for over 2 hours. Tell him I need help. Oh my God, Maya, are you okay? Did they hurt you? I'm fine, Maya assured her, though fine was far from how she felt. Just tired and frustrated. Please call Roger right away. I'm on it. Should I come down there? Maya glanced at Lieutenant Davis and Officer Brennan, who were both watching her. No, just call Roger. I'll explain everything later. As she finished the call, Lieutenant Davis took the phone back. Now, Ms. Williams, would you like to tell us your side of the story while we wait for your attorney to arrive? Maya shook her head. I'll wait for legal counsel before making any statements. Lieutenant Davis sighed. Very well. In that case, we'll return you to the holding cell until your attorney arrives. May I ask a question? Maya said as she stood up. Am I being charged with anything specific? Because if not, I should be free. To leave. Officer Brennan has filed charges of obstruction and resisting a peace officer, Lieutenant Davis replied. Those charges are being processed now. Maya felt a wave of disbelief. That's absurd. There were witnesses at the scene who recorded the entire interaction. I never resisted or obstructed anything. Those recordings will be reviewed as part of the investigation, Lieutenant Davis said, his tone non-committal. For now, you'll remain in custody until arraignment unless your attorney can arrange bail. Maya was led back to the holding cell, her mind racing. This situation had escalated beyond anything she could have imagined when she left work just a few hours ago. Now she was facing criminal charges that could affect her job, her reputation, her entire life. Back in the cell, Maya sat on the hard bench and tried to stay calm. Roger would help. The witnesses with their phone recordings would help. The truth would come out. She had to believe that. Time crawled by. Maya dozed off briefly, her head resting against the cold wall only to jerk awake at the sound of voices in the hallway. She checked her watch, 4:45 a.m. Almost dawn. The door at the end of the hallway opened and Officer Reynolds appeared. She approached Maya's cell with a cup of coffee in hand. Thought you might need this, she said, sliding the cup through the opening in the door. It's not great, but it's hot. Thank you, Maya said, gratefully accepting the warm cup. Has my attorney arrived yet? Officer Reynolds glanced over her shoulder before responding in a low voice. Not yet, but there's something you should know. Those videos from the convenience store are already online. They're getting a lot of attention. Maya's heart skipped a beat. What kind of attention? The kind that makes the department nervous, Officer Reynolds replied. Lieutenant Davis has been on the phone for the last 20 minutes. I think things might be changing. Before Maya could ask what she meant, the door at the end of the hallway opened again. Lieutenant Davis appeared, accompanied by a woman in a crisp suit despite the early hour. She carried a leather briefcase and wore an expression of controlled anger. Ms. Williams, the woman said as they reached the cell. I'm Andrea Powell from the district attorney's office. I apologize for what you've experienced tonight. Maya stood up, confused by this unexpected development. I don't understand. I was waiting for my own attorney. Your attorney, Mr. Taylor, is on his way, Ms. Powell said. But I wanted to speak with you first. There have been some developments regarding your case. Lieutenant Davis unlocked the cell door. We'll talk in the interview room. Once again, Maya found herself in the small room with the metal table. This time, however, Officer Brennan was noticeably absent. Ms. Williams, Andrea Powell began once they were seated, I've reviewed the preliminary reports of your arrest, as well as video footage that has been circulating online for the past hour. Based on what I've seen, I have serious concerns about the validity of the charges against you. Maya felt a surge of vindication but remained cautious. The charges are completely fabricated. I did nothing wrong. I believe you, Ms. Powell said, surprising Maya with her directness. And I've instructed Lieutenant Davis to begin the process of releasing you immediately. Lieutenant Davis shifted uncomfortably in his chair. We're preparing the paperwork now. What about the charges? Maya asked. They will be dropped, Ms. Powell assured her. There is clearly insufficient evidence to support them. She paused, her expression becoming more serious. Ms. Williams, what happened to you tonight should never have occurred. As a representative of the district attorney's office, I want to extend our sincere apologies. Maya looked from Ms. Powell to Lieutenant Davis, who was avoiding eye contact. I appreciate that, she said carefully. But an apology doesn't erase what happened. I was wrongfully detained, humiliated, and treated like a criminal for no reason. We understand that, Ms. Powell said. And I want to assure you that there will be a full investigation into Officer Brennan's conduct tonight. Maya took a deep breath, gathering her courage for what she was about to say. The words felt powerful on her tongue, like a spell that might finally break the nightmare of this night. I will get you fired, she said, looking directly at Lieutenant Davis. Her voice was quiet but firm, not angry, but resolute. Not you personally, Lieutenant, but Officer Brennan. His behavior tonight was not just unprofessional, it was discriminatory and abusive. I will file a formal complaint. I will speak to every relevant authority. I will ensure that what happened to me tonight never happens to anyone else at his hands. There was a moment of silence following her declaration. Lieutenant Davis looked uncomfortable but not surprised. Ms. Powell nodded slightly, as if acknowledging the justness of Maya's position. You have every right to pursue that course of action, Ms. Powell said. And for what it's worth, based on what I've seen, you'll likely have the full support of the DA's office. The door opened, and a man Maya recognized as her cousin Roger rushed in looking worried and disheveled. Maya, are you okay? I came as soon as Leah called. I'm okay, Roger, Maya said, feeling truly relieved for the first time that night. And I think I'm about to be released. That's correct, Lieutenant Davis confirmed. The paperwork is being processed now. Roger looked from Maya to the others in the room, clearly trying to catch up with the situation. What about the charges Leah mentioned? They're being dropped, Ms. Powell explained, introducing herself to Roger. Your client was wrongfully detained. As the adults continued talking, Maya felt a weight lifting from her shoulders. The nightmare wasn't over. There would be reports to file, complaints to make, possibly even legal action to take. But the immediate danger had passed. Her words, I will get you fired, had somehow broken through the wall of institutional protection that had surrounded Officer Brennan. Within the hour, Maya's handcuffs were removed, her belongings returned, and she was walking out of the police station into the pale light of dawn, Roger at her side. Her sister Leah was waiting in the parking lot, rushing forward to embrace her as soon as she appeared. I was so worried, Leah said, hugging Maya tightly. Are you really okay? Maya hugged her back, feeling exhausted but resolute. I will be, she promised. This isn't over, but I'm free now. That's what matters for the moment. As they walked to Roger's car, Maya glanced back at the police station. This night had changed her. She had faced injustice and stood her ground. She had spoken truth to power with those 5 simple words. I will get you fired. And somehow those words had made all the difference. The sun was fully up by the time Maya arrived home, escorted by her sister Leah and cousin Roger. The familiar sight of her apartment building brought an overwhelming sense of relief. After the night she'd endured, even the cracked sidewalk and the neighbor's overflowing recycling bin seemed beautiful. You should try to get some sleep, Leah said as they walked Maya to her door. I called the hospital and told them you had a family emergency. Your supervisor said to take the day off. Maya nodded gratefully. She was exhausted, both physically and emotionally. Thank you. I don't think I could face work today. I'll start working on the formal complaint this morning, Roger said, his expression serious. And I've already reached out to a colleague who specializes in civil rights cases. We're meeting for lunch to discuss your options. Thank you, Roger, Maya said, squeezing his arm. I don't know what I would have done without you both tonight. Leah pulled her into another hug. That's what family is for. Now get some rest. I'll check on you later. Inside her apartment, Maya went through her normal routine on autopilot, hanging up her keys, taking off her shoes, placing her purse on the kitchen counter. But nothing felt normal. How could it, after what she'd experienced? She showered, letting hot water wash away the feel of the holding cell, the touch of the handcuffs on her wrists. Then she collapsed into bed, expecting to fall asleep instantly. Instead, her mind kept replaying the events of the night: the traffic stop, Officer Brennan's hostility, the humiliation of being handcuffed in public, the cold holding cell, and then those 5 words that had somehow changed everything. "I will get you fired." Maya hadn't planned to say them. They had risen from somewhere deep inside her, a place of righteous indignation and unwavering resolve. And somehow, those words had cut through all the bureaucracy and injustice, triggering a series of events that led to her release. Eventually, exhaustion won out over her racing thoughts, and Maya fell into a deep, dreamless sleep. She woke to the sound of her phone ringing. Disoriented, she reached for it, noting that the clock read 2:17 p.m. She'd slept for almost 8 hours. "Hello?" she answered, her voice still thick with sleep. "Maya? It's Roger. Did I wake you?" "It's fine," she assured him, sitting up and pushing her hair from her face. "What's going on?" "A lot, actually," Roger replied, sounding energized. "First, those videos from the convenience store have gone viral. They're all over social media, and several news outlets have picked up the story. People are outraged on your behalf." Maya felt a flutter of anxiety. "They're using my name?" "No, most reports are just referring to you as a black female healthcare worker, or something similar. Your face is blurred in the videos being shared, but the focus is definitely on Officer Brennan's behavior." Maya wasn't sure how she felt about becoming the center of a viral story, even anonymously. Part of her was grateful for the public support, but another part worried about the attention. "There's more," Roger continued. "I met with my colleague, Patricia, who specializes in civil rights cases. She wants to meet with you as soon as possible. And the police department's internal affairs division has already reached out, requesting an interview." "That was fast," Maya said, surprised by how quickly things were moving. "The videos don't leave much room for interpretation," Roger explained, "and the timing couldn't be worse for the department. They're already under scrutiny for several other incidents in the past year. Your case is adding fuel to an already burning fire." After arranging to meet with Roger and Patricia later that day, Maya ended the call and checked her phone. She had dozens of missed calls and messages, from co-workers who had heard about her family emergency, from friends who had seen the viral videos and recognized her car, even from her parents who were on vacation but had somehow caught wind of the situation. Maya took a deep breath. The quiet aftermath she had imagined, filing a complaint, perhaps pursuing legal action, all done privately and methodically, was not to be. Her personal experience had become part of a larger conversation about police conduct and racial bias. That evening, Maya met with Roger and Patricia at a quiet cafe a few blocks from her apartment. Patricia was a formidable woman in her 50s with sharp eyes and a no-nonsense attitude that immediately put Maya at ease. "What happened to you was a textbook case of racial profiling and abuse of power," Patricia said after listening to Maya's account of the night's events. "The good news is we have overwhelming evidence. The videos from bystanders, the testimony of Officer Reynolds, who seems uncomfortable with how things were handled, and most importantly, the fact that your taillight was demonstrably not out, which invalidates the entire stop." "What are my options?" Maya asked. "Several," Patricia replied, laying out a folder of documents. "We can file a civil rights lawsuit against Officer Brennan and the department. We can work with the district attorney's office on potential criminal charges for false arrest and unlawful detention. Or we can focus solely on ensuring Officer Brennan faces appropriate disciplinary action through internal channels." "I don't want money," Maya said firmly. "What I want is to make sure this doesn't happen to anyone else. I want accountability, and I want change." Patricia nodded approvingly. "Then let's pursue all available avenues. The public attention this case is receiving gives us leverage. The department will be eager to resolve this quickly and show they're taking it seriously." Over the next several weeks, Maya's life took on a new rhythm. By day, she returned to her work at the hospital, finding comfort in the familiar routines and the support of her colleagues. By evening, She met with attorneys, gave statements to internal affairs investigators, and occasionally spoke with carefully selected journalists who were covering the story. 3 weeks after the incident, Maya sat in a conference room at the police department headquarters accompanied by Patricia and Roger. Across the table sat the police chief, the head of internal affairs, and Andrea Powell from the district attorney's office. "Ms. Williams," the police chief began, "after a thorough investigation of the events of that night, we have determined that Officer Brennan violated multiple departmental policies and procedures. His conduct fell far short of the standards we expect from our officers." Maya listened silently, her face betraying no emotion. "Effective immediately, Officer Brennan has been terminated from his position with the department," the chief continued. "Furthermore, all charges against you have been formally dropped, and all records of your arrest have been expunged." Andrea Powell spoke next. "The DA's office has decided not to pursue criminal charges against Officer Brennan at this time, primarily because the evidence suggests systemic issues that extend beyond one officer's actions. Instead, we're working with the department on comprehensive reforms to address racial bias in policing." Maya finally spoke. "What kind of reforms?" The chief looked uncomfortable but answered directly. "Mandatory bias training for all officers, body cameras to be worn at all times during interactions with the public, an independent civilian review board to evaluate complaints against officers, and a complete overhaul of our traffic stop protocols. These reforms are directly influenced by what happened to you, Ms. Williams," Andrea Powell added. "Your experience has become a catalyst for change." After the meeting, as they walked to the parking lot, Patricia turned to Maya. "You did it. Your words that night, 'I will get you fired,' they came true." Maya shook her head slightly. "It wasn't just my words. It was the videos, the witnesses, the public outcry. It was you and Roger fighting for me. It was Officer Reynolds speaking up. It was everyone who refused to let this injustice stand." "True," Patricia acknowledged, "but it started with you refusing to be silenced. Never underestimate the power of speaking truth in the face of injustice." 6 months later, Maya stood at a podium in a community center addressing a room full of people. Some were community activists, some were police officers, some were just concerned citizens. All were there for the first meeting of the newly formed Community Police Relations Committee, which Maya had been asked to co-chair. "What happened to me was not unique," she told the audience. "Black and brown people face similar treatment every day, often without the benefit of witnesses or viral videos to validate their experiences. What is unique is the opportunity we have now to transform a painful experience into meaningful change." She looked around the room, meeting the eyes of police officers and community members alike. Real change requires uncomfortable conversations. It requires acknowledging hard truths about bias and power. It requires commitment from all sides. But most of all, it requires courage. The courage to speak up when we witness injustice. The courage to listen when others share their experiences. And the courage to hold ourselves and our institutions accountable. As Maya concluded her speech, to enthusiastic applause, she thought back to that night in the interview room, when she had looked Lieutenant Davis in the eye and said those 5 words that had changed everything. "I will get you fired." What she hadn't realized then was that those words weren't just about removing one problematic officer. They were about standing up against a system that allowed such abuse to occur. They were about refusing to be silenced or intimidated. They were about claiming her power in a situation designed to make her feel powerless. In the end, Officer Brennan had indeed lost his job. But more importantly, a community had gained a voice. A police department had begun the hard work of reform, and Maya Williams had discovered a strength within herself that she never knew she possessed. The strength to turn a moment of injustice into a movement for change.